This is the DJI MAVIC number 3, and this drone is absolutely incredible. So in this video, we're gonna go through 10 different things that you need to know about this drone, and we're gonna go over all of the features, and I'm gonna show you a ton of footage that I've been shooting with this drone over the last few weeks. I took it up to Alaska and was flying up around the glaciers, up by the lakes and the huge mountains, and then I took it out to Utah and got some pretty extreme looking landscapes to test this drone and see how it performs in all of these different settings. So before we get started, I just wanna give you guys a quick disclaimer. DJI did send this drone out to me to be able to test. However, I was not paid to do this review, and this is just all of my thoughts after working with this in all of these different locations. So the first thing that I wanna go over are the two versions of the drone. Both versions of the drone have the same sensor and the same lens on the camera. The difference is there is a Cine version with a 1TB internal SSD drive, and it can shoot Apple ProRes. Now the version that I have only has 8 GB of internal memory, so it's just like the other drones in DJI's lineup. And 8 GB is not a lot of footage. You can grab a few shots if you forget your SD card, but you really can't get that much. And it's something that I wish DJI would increase this to at least 64 or 128 gigs internal on all their drones. So this version of the drone uses a micro SD card just like the original Pro 2, and you can use SD cards up to 1TB in size. So the Cine version is available if you need that Apple ProRes, but honestly the footage I've been getting out of this drone has been grading super well because the bitrate is higher and you're still getting 10-bit out of this drone even if you don't have the Cine version. The other major difference between the two versions is that the Cine version has a new controller. So it's just like the smart controller, but it's one made for the Cine camera. This version only comes with the regular controller, which you mount your phone on top of it. This is the same controller that we've been using with the Air 2S and some of the other drones. So it's got the same size and nothing's really changed about the controller. All right, number 2, let's talk about the size. The Mavic 3 is pretty much the exact same size as the Mavic 2. So you're not dealing with a bigger drone. Now in comparison to the Air 2S or the Air 2, it definitely is a little bit bigger, but when you close down the arms, this can easily fit in a camera backpack. And it fits nicely in my Shimoda bag, so I usually take out the drone, a camera, a few lenses, the controller, and a few other odds and ends. So it still is a super portable drone. All right, so number 3, let's talk about resolutions and frame rates. So this drone will shoot up to 5.1K, up to 50 frames per second. In 4K, it goes all the way to 120 frames per second. And in 1080p, you can shoot at 200 frames per second. So you have a lot of options there if you're someone who wants to work slow motion with this camera, but also if you need those higher resolutions, it does have that 5.1K resolution. Now in terms of codec, you have H.264, H.265, and on the Cine version, you have the Apple ProRes, but you get the same resolutions and the same frame rates for both drones. Now, in terms of the bitrate, the original Mavic 2 Pro only shot at 100 megabits per second, whereas this version of the drone shoots in H.264 at 200 megabits per second. And if you're shooting H.265, it's 140 megabits per second. I've noticed that the color grading is just so much easier with this drone, and you can really make some good looking shots out of this footage. Now, all the footage that you're seeing in this video was color graded using my set of drone LUTs, and I'll put a link down below in the description to where you can check those out and download them so that you can use them on your drone footage. Number 4 is flight time. Now this is a huge advantage of the Mavic 3. This has a 46-minute flight time. Definitely feels a lot longer than what the Mavic 2 Pro had, which was 31 minutes. That little bit of extra time just gives you so much flexibility when you're out flying. It gives you a sense of safety and security because You'll be up flying, getting a bunch of shots. You'll look down at your controller and you still have like 50% of your battery. Typically, I get my drone up and I'm trying to grab as many shots as possible before I run out of battery and bring it down. And I've noticed I've been able to relax a little bit with this drone. I don't have to rush so much because that 46 minutes gives you an extra boost of time, and it's just enough for you to be able to spend some time looking for shots and just making sure that everything's set up properly before you have to bring the drone down. Everyone that I've been with the last few weeks has commented on the fact that the drone feels like it's up in the sky forever. Like, we're getting so many different shots on one battery and you don't have to worry about bringing it back. And so this is gonna be a huge advantage of the Mavic 3, because if you're carrying 3 batteries with you, that's giving you over 2 hours of flight time, which is a lot to work with for a day of shooting. So number 5 is the speed of the drone. So there definitely feels like there's a difference with this drone. When I've been flying out in the desert, I was getting it up to 46 miles per hour just by looking at the screen and seeing what my speed was. Now, on the spec sheet that DJI sent me, it says it goes 21 meters per second, which is pretty much what I was getting. Now, working with this drone in sport mode is a ton of fun. And that's one thing that I've been doing a lot of when I was out flying with this drone. The one thing about sport mode is you don't have your obstacle avoidance. So basically all your sensors shut off, which means that you can potentially hit something. However, with this drone in sport mode, there is still a ton of control with the joystick. And I was able to chase our trucks through the desert at max speed and still get super stable looking footage. So for your ascent and your descent, it's doubled. So that means that when you take the drone off and you have it in sport mode, you can take off and just boom, rip out as far as you need to go to be able to get your shot and get there super fast. When I'm out flying, that's one thing that I always do, is get the drone up and get it away to where I need to as fast as possible. And then I flip into cine mode to get that more dramatic, smooth looking footage. Number 6 is we need to go over the camera on this drone. And this drone actually has 2 cameras. It's got your wide typical drone camera, and then it has a zoomed in lens on top of that. Now, the main camera is a Hasselblad 4/3 sensor, which is a huge advantage over other drones on the market, because having a bigger sensor is gonna give you more detail and it's gonna give you overall better looking footage, especially in low light situations. So when you're getting closer to sunrise, sunset, or even if you're shooting in the dark. Now, the field of view on this main camera is 84, which is an equivalent to a 24mm lens. So this is a little bit wider than the original Pro 2. And this drone also features an aperture. So it goes from an f2.8 to an f11. And having this aperture means that you don't have to necessarily always rely on ND filters. And also, when you close down your aperture, you can get the starburst out of any direct light sources. And I've noticed that the starburst on this drone looks way better than the Mavic 2 Pro, because it's not as aggressive. On the original 2 Pro, the starburst was like taking over the image when you would shoot with it, whereas with this, it has a nice look to it and you can actually keep it in your frame, and you can have that look of the sun being a starburst in the sky. Now, in terms of focus, you have about 3 feet is the closest you can focus to this drone, and it goes to infinity. Now, let's talk about the zoom lens, because that's something that's really different about this drone. On the original Mavic 2, you had 2 versions. You had a zoom version, which was an optical zoom up to 2 times, and then you had the normal 2 Pro. Now, on this drone, you don't have an optical zoom, it's a digital zoom. However, the top lens is a 7x lens. So it's a 1/2 inch sensor, and it's got a field of view of 15 degrees, which is 161mm. So it's a 7x zoom compared to the 24mm. So natively, the second lens is a 161mm camera. That is so different than anything else on the market when it comes to drones. 161mm is a super long lens. This camera has a fixed aperture of f4.4. So when you put it into what's called Explore mode, you get access to a bunch of different zooming capabilities. You have 1x, which is that 24mm. You have 2x and 4x, which is basically just punching in on that 24mm lens. So it's a digital crop. And then you have 7x, which is the second lens on top. And then you have 14 and 28. So effectively, you have 2 cameras on this drone, and each one of those cameras can go 4x in terms of crop. Now, definitely, if you're shooting at the 24mm or you're shooting at the 7x, the 161mm, you're gonna get the best looking footage. Now, one thing you're gonna notice is that the footage is blurring my face. Now, this is something that's just with the pre-release software, but you're not gonna see this blurring when you get the drone and you're using this zoom feature. The other thing that's strange about this mode is you're limited to 4K 30 frames per second, and you're limited to auto exposure settings only. Also in this mode, the 1, 2, and 4X you can shoot in D-Log, but 7, 14, and 28, you just have to shoot in the standard color. And when working with this drone, 7X seems like a lot, and it's something that I'm still getting used to. It would have been nice to have an optical zoom on the Hasselblad camera because that's a better camera overall. However, with this 7X, you can get some crazy shots that you can't get with any other drones, and it's something definitely I'm gonna play with more and more because it is something unique with the Mavic 3. Number 7, let's talk about photography. So this drone has a 20 megapixel sensor, and the effective resolution is 5280 by 3956. So you could use that full 5K sensor to be able to get these high resolution shots. And then also you could shoot in both JPEG and DNG RAW. And on this camera, you have access to shoot your photos up to 12,800 ISO. That gives you a lot more capability to shoot in super low light. As you can see from this photo right here, we're lit entirely from a campfire and the moonlight. And when you do a little bit of editing, you're able to pull a lot out of this image. Now, definitely at 12,800, it is much more noisy than if you were to shoot at lower ISOs, but you put a little bit of noise reduction on it and you get a clean looking image. Now, in terms of video, when it comes to the ISO, you get access to 12,800 if you're in the normal setting, but if you're in D-Log, you only have access to 400 and 800. Number 8, let's talk about the obstacle avoidance sensors. So this drone will sense things around it omnidirectional, meaning that every direction. Now this is something that I've been really looking forward to for this drone because on the Air 2S, you only have forward backwards and you don't have that side to side. And so when you're doing something like an orbit around an object, you could easily run into something that's next to you. Whereas on this drone, you're never gonna run into anything when you have the obstacle avoidance turned on. Now you get access to this when you're filming in the cine or normal mode, but all of it shuts off when you go into sport mode. And so if you're flying super fast in that sport mode, you definitely need to pay attention to where you're flying. Whereas when you're in normal and cine mode, if you get close to something like a tree, you could either have the drone stop or it's gonna bypass that tree by going up and over the object. Now, number 9, let's talk about charging the drone. Let's talk about the batteries. So one design difference is the batteries now go in the back. You have these 2 buttons on the back that you push in, and then you can pull the batteries straight out. And the batteries have been completely redesigned, so it's a different style than the original Pro 2. Now these batteries take a 65-watt charger, and this does make a difference because when we are overlanding and we are charging these batteries, we could just plug it directly into our Goal Zero batteries and we didn't have any issues. So the charger itself has a USB-C port on it, and you can plug that into anything that's gonna output at least 65 watts of power. Now DJI's charging cable is much smaller than previous versions, and if you have multi-batteries, the way that it charges is this little multi-battery charger. It's a much smaller setup and it actually works pretty well. They don't fall off that easily. Now, if you want to charge this drone by just plugging it in, there is a USB-C port on the drone, and you could just plug the drone in and charge it directly. Now that USB-C port that's on the drone is also how you can pull the internal memory off. And if you have your SD card inserted, you could just pull your memory off that way as well. So number 10 is the ActiveTrack 5.0. So the pre-release software that I had did not have the ActiveTrack fully working yet. From my understanding, the ActiveTrack 5.0 is going to be better than previous versions of ActiveTrack. And I've done videos around how well this ActiveTrack works. I'll include a link down below in the description where I go through all the different modes and explain how ActiveTrack works on a DJI drone. However, the big advantage of ActiveTrack 5.0 with the Mavic 3 is those side-to-side sensor obstacle avoidance. So if you're flying in orbit or you're flying in a mode where the drone is chasing you and there's a tree in the way, you're not gonna hit that tree. So this is gonna be super useful once it's available, and it's something that I will definitely do another video on once I have access to it on my software. All right, so there's a ton of features packed into this drone, but let's just take a look at the footage. So all of this footage that you're about to see was shot in 5K or 4K. I shot some in 30 frames per second, some of it in 50 frames per second, and it's all shot in the H.264 codec, and I did a color grade on all of this footage. So working with this drone over the last few weeks, I was able to fly in a ton of different situations, whether it was freezing at the top of mountains or out in the desert with super dusty conditions chasing our Jeeps. And I really had no issues flying this drone. It works well, it flies well, and it's fun to fly. DJI has come so far with their drones. I originally started with the Phantom 2 with a GoPro attached on the bottom, and now we have the Mavic 3, which is an incredible piece of machinery, and this thing just works super well. So let me know down below in the comments if you have any questions about the Mavic 3. And next, I highly suggest you check out this video right here. It goes through all of the different drone moves that I like to use when I'm out flying. So I'll see you on the next video.